Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you for joining us for the 10th day of our Vaisakhi countdown. I've been thinking not just about Vaisakhi lately and sort of the harvest season, but also about the things that come before it. And specifically like the season of Basant. And so I thought it would be fitting to talk a little bit about Bhagat Ramanand's composition because it's set in that rag, and I think he can sort of show us a couple of important things about what it means to sort of plant certain seeds, what it means to sort of clear certain things out to make room for the new, and what it means to eventually bloom and sort of, reap what you sow in the harvest season. And so for those who don't know, Bhagat Ramanand is, someone who comes out of a larger tradition of Advaita Vedanta, which is one of the 6 schools of Hindu philosophy. And in his context, had mastered elements of this school of thought, had reached this high level of mastery in teaching, had great respect, had great influence. And before this composition was uttered, he had his own journey with his own mentor. So he's coming from a particular tradition, a particular school of thought, a particular discipline and way of sort of seeing the world. And this composition, as I said, is set in the musical mode of Basant, which is about changing seasons. It's about freshness and newness and sort of spring cleaning, preparing to bloom. It evokes a kind of mood of brushing things away that one is aware of and beginning something new. And so Bhagat Ramanand is experiencing this kind of spring cleaning in his own practice, his own belief system, and that all is reflected in this composition. And I think the important thing to know is that it's not that his previous spiritual practices and understandings and learnings were a waste, but that those previous questions and goals that used to be important to him are no longer relevant to him. And so there's this hope for a new beginning and a new understanding. And that is the Bhagat, the devoted one, Ramanand, who we see in the Guru Granth Sahib. So in the Raha line, Bhagat Ramanand says, "O people, where should one go? The heart home is filled with the color of bliss. My consciousness does not waver. My wandering mind has become crippled." So he's asking these rhetorical questions that are kind of reminiscent of his philosophical tendencies in his previous sort of life. And he asks, where shall I go now? Where can we go to dye our consciousness in the color of love? Where can we go to cripple these wandering minds? And the focus here is on the mind, because in his school of thought, in the discipline that he was sort of adhering to before, the goal is to seek particular knowledge and to use particular techniques to attain that knowledge. And through this expression of like wanting to literally like incapacitate his mind to keep it from wandering, those previous paradigms in which like knowledge is the ultimate goal and intellect is the ultimate goal are being upended. And instead he's seeking to keep the mind from running around after all this intellectual accumulation, and to instead experience connection and love beyond intellect. And I think, something that's important for this composition is that Bhagat Ramanand is not pointing his finger at everybody else and saying, don't you know that that ritual or that goal is a waste of time? He's only reflecting on his own journey, his own lifestyle, his own questions, and saying, those aren't my questions anymore. I actually am exhausted by the things that I was doing before. And it's important that he says, like, if I still believed, if I still understood the divine to only be in these pilgrimage places or in these rituals or in these idols, then I would still be partaking in those things. But my paradigm has shifted, and the wisdom has shown me where the supreme being, Ikonkar, is, that Ikonkar is dwelling within, in the mind, in the heart. And so that presence of Ikonkar is felt because the Bhagat has been able to feel it through the guidance of the wisdom. It's not that the presence has suddenly appeared. It's that Bhagavad Ramanand has had a sort of world-shifting experience and now can feel that presence within him instead of seeking it outside of himself. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just love it when he says, like, now when he looks around, he sees only water and stones. Like, he doesn't see idols. He doesn't see places of pilgrimage. He just sees water and stones. And it's because his relationship to those things has entirely shifted. And there is a closeness and a nearness of the divine that he now feels. And so what does all this have to do with anything? I think it has a couple of things to do with just larger things I've been thinking about, you know, regarding my own journey, regarding people sort of asking us questions about their own journeys, maybe being frustrated that like certain things haven't happened for them yet. Maybe they haven't felt the presence yet. Maybe they're still caught up in their own their own worldviews or misunderstandings, or maybe they're looking at other people and saying, well, why haven't they come to these understandings yet? And I think the reason that I've really been coming back to Bhagavad Ramanand is because this is not a composition of condemnation. It's not a composition of looking at everyone else and having opinions about their practice and about their own journeys. It's about a person who was in his own context, in his own paradigm, and who was reflecting and was brave enough and vulnerable enough to pursue a new set of questions when he knew that like these old ones were not working for him anymore. And what's important about that is that like our journeys are our own, and sometimes we need to take certain routes and have certain experiences to come to an understanding of what it is that we're actually looking for. Because we can understand what it is we ought to be looking for by reading Bani, and we can understand that maybe logically, but experiencing that shift in paradigm takes a lot of effort and can be kind of, grueling. And I actually think that there is great value in that struggle and in that journey. Which brings me to Vaisakhi, which brings me to Vaisakhi because maybe we think of the harvest season and we say, this is Vaisakhi historically, and in our history, in larger history and in our history, is a time of harvest and transformation. And it's a time of breaking certain bonds, breaking certain ideas that have kept us, kept us down in some way, understanding that we're part of a larger community with a larger role in the world, understanding the Guru's revolution as a gift. That's all part of Vaisakhi. But maybe we think that transformation has to happen immediately. And I think the reason that I still keep coming back to Basant is because we are making room for something new to come. And that takes great effort and can be sort of frustrating or demoralizing even, because we maybe think that things need to happen more quickly. And I'm trying to remind myself that this transformation is always happening, not just in the month of Basant, not just in the month of Vaisakhi or Vaisakh. It's not just happening in one particular time. We're constantly sort of going through these journeys and going through this chiseling so that we can continue to bloom and continue to transform. And I think someone like Bhagavad Ramanand is a helpful person to sort of look at as someone who had a really long journey before they came to this realization, before they felt the presence, before they were colored in this kind of transcendent love. But also Bhagavad Ramanand is important to look at in this time for me, because it's not just about his personal transformation, his internal transformation. It's also about his external transformation and the fact that he showed in his external behavior that something had shifted within him by who he chose as his disciples, right? He had 13 disciples, 2 of which were women. 7 out of the 11 men are disciples whose writings are in the Guru Granth Sahib, whose utterings are in the Guru Granth Sahib. And this was a person who benefited from the systems that we are constantly trying to challenge, who benefited from his caste position, who benefited from his power as somebody who was like a greatly respected religious leader and teacher. And so he easily could have just said, I'm comfortable where I am, and ignored the fact that like something had shifted within him, that the questions that he had didn't fit in the paradigm he was a part of. But instead he decided to do the harder thing, which is to, upend everything that his power had been founded upon and change internally and externally. And I think that's, to me, something that honors this revolution of Vaisakhi. And it's something that takes great time, great effort, great reflection, great connection with wisdom, with Shabad. All of those things have to work together to allow for this kind of transformation. And I hope we know that we're already transforming. We always are in relationship with Shabad and with Ikonkar, but that it takes time. And the way that we bloom this year is going to look different from the way we bloom next year. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about it. So I hope you have a wonderful Vaisakhi full of reflection and connection and sort of active remembrance and coloring yourself in this love. And I hope that you know that the blooming doesn't stop when this season is over. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.